USC, they play Oregon this weekend. Big Saturday and Sunday games in the tournament. So Albert Breer came out with his mock draft, and he's got quarterbacks in the top 4. He's got Trevor Lawrence going to the Jags, of course. Zach Wilson to the Jets probably happens. He has the Denver Broncos trading with the Miami Dolphins at 3 and getting Justin Fields. I know Denver would love to do that. And then he's got Trey Lance, who I think is going to be really good, going number 4 to Atlanta, and then it's, just a bunch of players. So, and by the way, Miami could trade out of that number 3 spot and get the number 9 pick and still get a great player, Jalen Waddle, who would help Tua, right? So that's the big thing. Here's the thing: is even when I've had a good job, I always have this sort of like understanding that it'll end. It's my fatalism, so just you're Brian Flores. So you're the coach of the Miami Dolphins. There's 32 NFL jobs. That is it. And if you lose the first one, you don't always get a second one. So you take the Dolphins job, and they have a history of firing coaches. And you'll be in year 3, and you've yet to make the playoffs. The Patriots are absolutely going to be better, and the Buffalo Bills are absolutely rolling. And you probably never have the number 3 pick again. And I want you to think about this. If you stick with Tua, next year is a bad college quarterback draft. Next year is not a great quarterback free agent space. You tell me. So this team last year was great on special teams. They won games on special teams. They were great on defense and didn't make the playoffs. And if you start looking around the AFC, today, Cleveland is better. Cincinnati will be better. The Chargers got an offensive line for Herbert. They should be better. New England's going to be better. You start sniffing around the AFC, Houston looks like they'll be worse. The Colts with Wentz will be better. Like, there's only 7 spots now to make the playoffs. So you're the coach. If you stick with Tua and you trade that 3 spot, what are you left with in a year? And that's my thing. At some points, the survivalism as a coach is, and I'm not saying Tua can't make plays. Listen, if they did this move as Albert Breer projects and they moved to 8, they could still get Jalen Waddle, who I think is a great college receiver. And they also went out and spent some money on a wide receiver in free agency. It's not on the top of my mind, but they went out and spent some money at wide receiver as well. So they're obviously trying to augment their receiving core. They have a good tight end. They're trying to augment it. I get that, to ensure Tua succeeds. But boy, when I look at this space, the Dolphins run through coaches, year 3, Patriots better, Bills rolling, AFC outside of Houston and Tennessee feels like everybody's a little bit better. I don't know if I'd give up that pick. Yesterday, Joy asked a legitimate question. She said, what's the game plan? And my takeaway is you draft whoever you want to draft. I don't care who it is. You just draft them 3. The number 3 draft pick is historically for terrible teams. You won 10 games. You're not a terrible team. So it's very rare in your franchise history that a great team gets a great draft pick in a great quarterback draft class. Just say those out loud. Really good team, really good draft pick, really big quarterback draft. Really good quarterback draft class. That doesn't happen in the NFL. The good teams don't get top 3 picks. Go look at who's drafting around the first round right now. It's the Jags, it's the Jets, it's the Lions, it's the Eagles. It's mostly tire fires. You're good and have a 3rd pick in a loaded quarterback draft class. On the year before, an awful quarterback draft class. I don't know. The good news is Miami could potentially get a haul for that number 3 pick. You could only drop down to Denver 9. You could probably end up getting, you'd probably get another first-round pick next year. You'd probably get a player at some point from Denver. Denver's got some really nice offensive pieces. But I think if I was Brian Flores, my survival mechanism is I'm real close to getting trapped here. The Patriots are going to eventually get this thing going again, and Buffalo is rolling, and there's only 7 draft picks, and the AFC, because of all these Trevor Lawrences and Joe Burrows, and the AFC's had really bad teams, whereas the NFC, the floor is lower. The ceiling may not be as high, with as many like high teams, but the ceiling's low in the NFC. So there's not a lot of dreck in the NFC. For the last 3 or 4 years, there's been awful teams, awful in the AFC. The worst teams have been AFC. Well, they all have star quarterbacks. And those guys are only getting better. Like Justin Herbert's getting better, and Mahomes is getting better, and Josh Allen's getting better, and Burrow's getting better, and Baker now has an all-star team. So I just look at it and I think, okay, great, you're a great defensive coach. If you're going up there and you got the 13th best quarterback in the AFC, what can you do?
They signed Will Fuller.
Will Fuller. So Will Fuller and getting Jalen Waddle, those are speed guys. So, I mean, those are, I'm not saying they augment Tua, but boy.
But if you take a quarterback with a third pick and you put them in a quarterback competition and then one of them doesn't work out, you can then trade the one that doesn't necessarily work out for other picks that you can use in next year's draft. You're not going to have maybe the number 3 pick.
Maybe I'm too
much. It's not like you're going to be out of picks in next year's draft.
I'm like the Bear Grylls of sportscasters. I'm just trying to survive.
You're just trying to survive.
I always feel like I'm an avalanche away in my career, but it's just like if I'm Brian Flores, man, you start looking around at the world, I can't give that quarterback pick up. Hour 2 next. Have old quarterbacks that Saints and Steelers have these 2 old guys that we kind of feel like the end is near. But the Saints have a plan.
Yes. Jameis
and Taysom. The Steelers don't.
That's always been my issue with the Steelers.
Joy, it's a bad quarterback draft class next year. So honestly, I know it would upset Ben, but at this point, no, they don't have a good enough.
Ben. Ben's been talking about retiring for like 4 years now.
They've got no plan.
No plan.
None.
The time for upsetting Ben has passed. And he just took a pay cut because he had to, essentially. So whether you're like in the camp that you shouldn't send him off without bringing in a new guy because it's disrespectful to Ben, like, okay, that's not how this world works. Like, if you're going to retire, if you're going to move on at the end of your career, someone else is to take your place. It's just football.
Yeah.
Now, there's some argument that they want to see what Dwayne Haskins has.
Well, that's fine. I got no problem with that.
I don't, but look, I've made my decision on Mason Rudolph. He's not the future of the Steelers. I'm sorry to break it to you guys. I don't know what Dwayne Haskins is. I didn't love him in Washington on the field. So I do think that the Steelers have a longer history of being a stable organization. So maybe this will be a better situation for him. But I don't know how have you gotten to this point without bringing someone else in?
Well, you're from Pittsburgh. This is a city. They always say about St. Louis and Pittsburgh, when you go to a party, everybody's like, where'd you go to high school?
When I meet people from Pittsburgh, I ask them where they went to high school.
No, it's always been the word. I mean, that's what they say about St. Louis and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
People grow up there. They live there.
They raise their families there, and then they raise their grandkids there.
That's right. Nobody at L.A., where'd you go to high school?
No.
Nobody asked that.
It'd be silliness.
So it's just one of those cities where they love their nostalgia.
I very much know this, and they're very loyal. Like, the Steelers might be the most loyal organization to the top, to the people at the top in like maybe all of sports. Just do not fire coaches. Do not move on from anything.
But nostalgia is a very dangerous thing in sports.
It is. And when you look at what the Steelers have done over the past decade, I don't know how you got here. Now, I think that the real problem, not necessarily has been, it's the fact that they don't have a running game. But that's because they didn't want to pay for one.
Well, their O-line's deteriorated, and they don't have...
You can't ask Ben to throw it 55 times a game. That's not going to work for any quarterback. That's not sustainable for any quarterback, but especially not an old quarterback. So anyway, they're happy that Ben's back, I guess. So LeBron will reportedly miss 4 to 6 weeks due to his high ankle sprain.
From today?
That timeline started on the day of the injury, which means that the Lakers could be without him until early May. So LeBron was having, obviously, another MVP-level season, 25.4 points, 7.9 rebounds, 7.9 assists per game before he went down. This report is from Shams. He also noted that Anthony Davis could be back in 2 to 3 weeks. So I don't know if you watched that game last night.
Lost to the Sixers.
They lost to the Sixers 109-101. They did make it competitive. They were down 18 points and got within 3.
Sixers hit a couple of big shots
with less than a minute. Danny Green hit the dagger.
Boy, he was hot.
Yeah, that was that was a little send-off. He got his ring last night, too. It was like, good night, Lakers. Look, they showed a little fight, but that doesn't matter. Nobody has, they showed a little fight in the win-loss column. They need to they need to stay in this with Anthony Davis and LeBron out. That would have been a big win for them last night. But they had so many turnovers. There's just no continuity whatsoever without. And look, I don't know what team could lose your top 2 stars in the West.
Well, in the East, the Nets haven't have won, but also LeBron is so much more influential than other stars that the Lakers' defense now stinks.
Yes.
It was number 1 in the league. He got hurt. It's now 18th. Like, you forget that LeBron may not be the on-ball defender he was years ago, but he's so influential in communication on defense and switching up. And
he's the leader of the team.
He is. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Chris Broussard, former New York Times sports writer, Fox Sports NBA